Hi, I'm Joel Snyder, President of Audio Description Associates and Director of the American Council of the Blind's Audio Description Project. You are listening to the Know Your Narrator series.
Welcome to the Audio Description Network Alliance. Today, we're very happy to have audio description narrator Kathlyn Finn with us. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Let's jump right in. What do you love about audio description?
So, I really love that I can give back with my art, and I feel like that's been kind of lacking in my previous work. And it's been a goal of mine. And it's just amazing to bring more inclusivity for an audience that has been largely ignored. And I just feel really grateful that I've been able to do this and participate in bringing the joy of film and TV to the visually impaired. I also have a lot of vocal training in my life for singing, and I found that voice acting has really brought the two loves of acting and vocal training together.
One of the cool things that you mentioned is the art and, you mentioned singing and voice acting. How do those tie into audio description?
So you have to be very disciplined in audio description, especially when you're doing professional work with the mics because they pick up on everything. So it's extremely important to be tuned in and being able to hear that. And I feel as if my vocal background has really helped with that. My musicality helps with that, even though there might not be music involved. But even when you're saying lines and doing things, it's pretty cool if you can kind of go with the beat or understand where the music is going within a project and kind of work around that.
Very cool. Let's talk about the rhythm of audio description. I'm imagining that as a voice talent doing this work, that you have a script that you're given, right? And
hmm
with that script, you have to kind of bring a timing sense. Maybe some lines are you say a little bit longer, some of them you kind of maybe chop up. Is that what you mean by rhythm, or could you expand a little bit what you mean by rhythm?
Yeah, I guess you could also put it as pacing. And a lot of times, depending on who's in the room and how much power you have over what's going on, you might have somebody directing you towards that, or you might not. And you might have to be that person that's advocating for it. But if you have a really good mixer, or if you're mixing it yourself and you feel confident in that, you can really get a good editing out of it. And you can also edit it while you're doing it as well.
And you've mentioned a lot of different roles in addition to you being a voice talent. Obviously, we talked about the script, the person who writes the script. And then when you're in the room, it sounds like when you are in the room, whether that's remotely or directly, that you're being directed and there's a mixer. Can you talk a little about your experience with those people that you work with?
First of all, they're my heroes. They're amazing. I really think that they have to wear a lot of different hats, and so do voice actors as well. And it's really good to get in a flow with a mixer. I currently have that right now, and I love it. It helps so much to feel comfortable with who you're working with. And the audio mixer will help you trying to explain more of the technical side, whereas a lot of actors come from the creative side. So they can kind of mix in the middle and create a good groove.
What a great example. The groove. It sounds almost like a dance that you're doing with the with the mixer.
You could tell I have a musical background. There you go.
It's great. Very good. So let's talk a little bit more about your experience with audio description itself. As much or as little as you want to share, can you tell about what your process is? Let's say from the time that you get the script to the time the engineer says that's a wrap.
I usually try to ask for the script beforehand if it's possible, because I feel as though that will really, really help you. Although you have to always be prepared that you won't get the script beforehand. But if I do get the script beforehand, what I usually do is I read through it completely and I highlight things, especially when there's beats or pauses. I highlight them in different colors, so it's just easier to see. I also separate lines and make them more readable as you're going through, because when you're reading really fast, it's nice to see visual separations. I just use slashes and things like that. I also do a lot of voice prep, a lot of tongue twisters and all those kinds of voice preps to get you into the right sound so that you don't sound like a fool.
Well, to not sound like a fool, it sounds like you've really cared a lot about your process. Just if I could review, you're talking about separating the lines using slashes or whatever visual separations. You talk about how you prepare your voice, and it almost sounds like you bring intention to it. I didn't mean to interrupt where you were, but I just wanted to go over some of
No.
those things.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think if you can have more time with the script, it's always going to help you. In this case, though, there are times when getting out of your head and just jumping into it also helps. Because if you think about it a little bit too much, you might end up tripping on your words or getting in your head. And yes, yeah, getting a little flustered. And you have to remain calm during the process. And I guess you just get used to that as you go on and keep doing it more and more. It was terrifying, terrifying at the beginning. But it's also freeing in a way. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling while you're doing it that you just are like, yes, I'm really in it right now. I'm really feeling it.
Sure, there's a flow, right? There's something that
Hmm.
kind of connects. And to your point about flustered and that terrifying feeling, I remember one of the first few projects that I worked on, there was this assumption that I made, and it was a false assumption, but I made the assumption that when the mixer stops to pick up a line, that means that I screwed up. And yes, but it's like that's an opportunity for the whole project of audio description to make sure that it's exactly what is best and trying to pivot from that. Oh no, I screwed up, and I was imagining just like a spiraling, explosion
Yes.
happening. It's just like, oh no, and that can so derail that flow. It's almost like literally going off the rails and being able to be in that sense of saying, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm doing it, and trust in my skills as a talent, and trust in her skills as a mixer, and make sure that we all are working together for this goal. And I'm curious if you don't mind
Mhm.
going into this a little bit. This kind of relates to one of the questions I was going to ask you about a challenge that you face in audio description. How do you overcome that flustered, terrifying feeling? Or how did you, I should ask?
Well, there's a few things. I should really shout out my acting coach. When I first moved here, I worked with Howard Fine acting, and he was really amazing at teaching you how to get through that feeling. And the best ways that he did it were when you were in a scene, if you made a mistake, you didn't stop. You just keep going. You just keep going. And you have to realize that everybody makes mistakes. And that was one thing that one of the mixers told me in one of my first sessions. I made a mistake and I was so embarrassed. And he goes, do you know how many people that they're making way more mistakes? You're fine. Like you're fine. It's going to be okay. Just keep going. And so it's nice to feel supported. I was very lucky in my job and where I started because I was very supported. But I think you have to trust yourself and realize that mistakes are where the light comes in. It's like the crack, it's where the light comes in. So you have to just go with the flow and, not take it too personally.
I love that you said you're fine and you studied with Howard Fine. There's some connection there. It's like, that support that you get in trusting yourself. It's funny that confidence that you have to bring when you're recording, the confidence doesn't come from perfection. It sounds like it's coming from another place. And that it's such a beautiful way that you explained that perspective that you have to bring as a talent. You bring this other thing. I can only imagine the focus that gets you there. Let's specifically talk about the process when you say you don't stop, you keep going, but there are literally times when the mixer does have to physically stop press a button and literally stops and then takes it back and does it again. That's another interruption to your flow. How would you address something like that?
Well, I guess when I'm in the session, what's going on through my head is what I have to think about here. I try to take it as an opportunity to make it better. Instead of saying, oh, I can't believe that didn't work, I say, I get another opportunity to say it better. Because you know what? That last time, it helps you readjust yourself. Because sometimes, too, when you're in the flow, you might not be thinking as much as you should. You kind of get into a little bit of a stagnation. I wouldn't say that, but you do kind of get an out of body experience in a way. And so sometimes those stops can actually help, and check in with yourself and see if your voice is okay. Do you need to, have a warm liquid such as tea or something? Do you need to readjust the way you're talking, make sure that it's matching everything else or it's matching the tone and the mood of what you're doing right then? So yeah, I just take it as an opportunity. also for us to just get a break, because sometimes you can just get in that flow and keep going, and your voice does need a second sometimes to catch up.
Yes, very good. It
Yeah.
sounds like there's a lot of awareness that you bring to your performance. I'm curious about your awareness of audio description before you started doing it. Were you aware of it? How were you introduced to audio description?
That is something that I wish would change about audio description. I was not aware of it at all. I obviously knew that when you went to a museum, you could get tours and obviously audio tours. But beyond that, I really didn't even think about how the visually impaired would be able to watch a movie with their loved ones. And I have some friends and family who are visually impaired, and I can't believe I just never asked about it or tried to understand more about their experiences with film. So, yeah, it was pretty much coming from zero. I knew that there were narrators, I knew that that was happening, but I learned about it at my work because they had a department doing audio description, and that's how it happened.
Very cool. Well, there's the past. What about the future? Where would you love to see audio description headed?
I definitely want to see a more targeted integration into the project from the get-go. I think it's really more of an afterthought than an addition to the artistic presentation of the film or TV show, or even live performance, because I know that they're starting to do it with live performance. And I just think there's so much more room to grow in that area. And it's a really missed opportunity to actually enhance the production. So they're starting to do this with closed captioning in a way where they're making different fonts and sizes available. And I just think injecting more of the personality into the writing and tone of the AD delivery, subtly, of course, could go a long way.
Anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
I would say that just talking about it and letting people spread the word will help not just only the visually impaired, but the whole community of AD, which is really important. I think there are a lot of people who, yes, visually impaired watch it, but there's also people now who are not visually impaired that are turning it on and listening to it. And I think that productions and the crew would just really benefit from knowing that this is actually a feature that people are going to be using, just like closed captioning was. It at the beginning, it was for a certain subset, but you can also make it available for everyone, and you can make it artistic and beautiful. And I just hope that gets more of a push.
Beautiful sentiment. Thanks for sharing that. How can people reach you on social media, Twitter, or Facebook, or something like
Oh man, the dreaded social media.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, so you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Katfin7. So that's KATFINN 7. I'm also on Instagram as Kathlyn Finn. I do have a Facebook page, but I guess that's pretty old school now. So people aren't really going there as much. I've been told I'm too much of a millennial in that respect. So yeah,
Ouch.
that's pretty much the way you can get at me. I know.
Very cool.
I'm doing side parts still, no middle parts. I'm a mess. I'm a mess to Gen Z.
Oh, shucks. Well, very cool. Thanks for joining us today. It's so great to have you,
So
Kathlyn.
good. Thank you so much. I'm so happy of the work you're doing. Thank you.